Hello, everyone. Another special from Traffic Talk. Not one we're used to here, but it's a one-off. Hopefully, you can forgive us for deflecting a little bit from matters on the pitch to something which has affected us off it in the last 7 days. I am not alone tonight, thankfully, with this. The man head honcho is responsible for all this. Robbie's with us. We've invited Alexi on as well, who's a very keen man on the topic. And I'm very happy to have, I think, probably the most important person here tonight is the founder of the Bari Army, an avid Man United fan, particularly for the women, as she's very well famous for, is Natalie. And I'm happy to have them all on with me. So how are you all doing, everyone?
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. We'll just obviously get started. We don't usually do something like this.
Yeah, strange, really. But we are doing it. There's a reason why we're doing it. Tonight, we are doing this show because the last 7 days, I'm sure there's plenty of people have followed up on social media and in the news. Players of the talent and such brilliant skill of Anthony Martial, Marcus Rashford, and Axel Tuanzebe were subjected to racial abuse on Instagram. And this was more or less the most heinous act we've seen from people who we do not class as football fans. They are more, I'd like to call scoundrels, mongrels, idiots, people who don't support Man United. While I wear a different color jersey today, I still support every team that follows the simple basic principle of kicking racism out of the game. And they've all followed the same mantra that no person who attacks a harmless black man, a harmless Asian man, a harmless person of color who's only out there to seek out the success they endure or work so hard for should be reduced or forced to face these unfortunate matters. And these people are not fans. I don't think they should be allowed to be working or functioning on these platforms or able to express their opinions on Instagram or Twitter like this without any form of sufficient proof that they are who they actually are. So we've done this tonight so that we give a chance for everyone to voice their opinion, and I hope it's something we can shed our 2 cents on, and should hopefully be the start of the end of racism in our game. So I wanted to start with Natalie because she is you're a big supporter, like I am, of kicking racism out of the game. And as you're a huge Man United fan yourself, I wanted to hear from you. How did you view these unfortunate acts, and what do you hope to see from the future in terms of getting this out of our game immediately? Internet's a bit behind.
Yeah, actually get back to light.
Yeah, it's a bit late. She is having a slow internet. Forgive her for that.
Yeah, we'll probably need to just move on.
All right, Robbie, you can start while we wait for Natalie to get back to normal.
Yeah, so, I mean...
For me, it's disgusting. Like you said, they're not Man United fans. They're not even football fans. I think it's people jumping onto some kind of, notion that's going on in the world. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
It's all right. Yeah, we can hear you, but it's a little. You're very far for us, very far behind. So we're gonna try and sort that out, and we'll get Robbie to give his thoughts first.
Yeah. So first of all, I don't think we do enough. I don't think we talk enough about equality, about issues like race faced in day-to-day life. Like, for example, I mean, we obviously started this for a United channel. It wasn't here to talk about these kind of things, but I mean, it is actually came to a point where we need to talk about it, and there's no point in going away from it, because you look at, the news, you look at underneath some of the players' posts on Twitter, Instagram, and they're shocking. You look at Anthony Martial, you look at Axel Tuanzebe, and you think they're getting racially abused here because they're bad at football. Like, how stupid can someone be? It's got to that point where not enough is being done, as Everything for United said. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Obviously, quite a sensitive subject for a lot of people. Not enough's been done, and you look at it and you think, what is Instagram doing and what is Twitter doing to actually stop these people get the messages on underneath role models like Martial, like Axel Tuanzebe? What are they doing to stop actually getting all these comments underneath? Because I mean, these guys definitely will have seen some of the comments. And Cam, you've just joined here. I can't believe you actually have to have this chat. It's just a bit annoying. And I mean, you're obviously on the football terrace, and I've been keeping up to date with it. And is it Latimus Prime? Got racially abused on streaming. You just look at that and you think, we need to do more. The hosts need to do more. We need to make sure we bring the right people in to actually talk about football, because we definitely do not stand for any sort of discrimination, and especially not racism. That was absolutely terrible. So, I mean, on that part, I hope those guys are obviously okay who were involved in that. But yeah, we definitely need to do more as a team.
Yeah, man. No, it was an ugly situation. It got dealt with.
Yeah.
I'm not going to speak on it because it's not my piece to speak on as much, and it did get spoke on quite a bit. It's more for Prime to deal with. But no, I was watching Ian Wright, and sharing him and those guys were talking about how it's more like the big issue stems a lot in how it's being dealt with from like just a legal standpoint, like from like lawmakers and like social media. Not a lot, like there needs to be more access to people who are pulling these things. So it's like if you're a terrorist and you're saying shit online, like they're gonna find you. So it's almost the same if you're racist and you're making comments. It's like you can, like they had to like reach out to Ian Wright to be like, hey, can we like use your computer to then track the person's IP and find the person and stuff like that. So it's more about what are they doing behind the scenes to make sure that, you know, people who are putting racist comments up on social media, who are attacking players, who are attacking other people on streams or whatnot, like whatever it might be, like what's going on behind the scenes to stop that is kind of the bigger conversation, I would say, because there is only so much everybody else can do, and if there's no consequence, it'll continue to happen. Like with like what happened to Zaha, I mean that proved a lot when the kid did get reprimanded, and then there's people who are going at him being like, oh, do you feel good about getting a kid like arrested? And he's like, I don't care if you're 12 or 13 or however old you are. It's like if you're racist, and that's your parents' fault, and they got to deal with it. And now everybody has to deal with it. So that's kind of like what you hope to see more of. Like that's. So I missed the start of the stream, so I don't know what you guys kind of covered.
All right. It happens. It happens, mate.
Yeah, we were almost talking about that though, Ahmed, and the fact about Instagram, and we were talking about socials. And I did say that, Cam, I was like, these big, huge companies, like these social media companies, need to be doing more as well to kind of prevent guys being able to actually see this content and just abuse thrown at them, because it's not fair and they don't deserve it. They're role models, and they've fought for years to get to the position they're at, and they're getting punished for it.
It's not fair. Nat, is your sound better now? Can you follow us? Hoping she'll be able to contribute. Yeah, she's using her phone this time.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait for a response, and then we'll do something.
Probably
yeah, it should be all right. No, just going onto like what Ian Wright said. Is it not working?
No, we can hear you.
No.
I can hear you.
The trouble we have, boys, is Nat's got very slow internet. It's not her fault particularly, but she's like 10 seconds behind. Are you okay? Can you keep up with us now? I hope we can keep you on the show.
Yeah, it's just what you...
Yeah, I think we just need to move on. It doesn't look as if...
struggling. I really want her to participate because it's important. But all right, we'll move on quickly. in regards to what happened on the terrace, yeah, I feel awful about that. I watched it, and I don't take particularly I don't take much pleasure in seeing that behavior being orchestrated on an open and welcoming channel such as that. I mean, we are, as you say, Robbie, looking to bring people in who are open and not out there to use the platform we bring here to deprive or discriminate others who are just there to share their thoughts on a game of football. And last night was is an example of that. I'm happy to host a multi-diverse review show, and the same for Cam when he hosts the previews. We're happy to host people who are from all backgrounds and all races to be able to share their thoughts. And I'm sure for them, as it is for us, it's something that hurts when we see people, or should we call them human beings? I don't even know, who go out there and simply just go out for one sole purpose, to actually go out and harm the other person's heritage, for example. Like, I'm an African. I'm a Somali by native. I'm born in England. I've had my fair share of racial abuse in years. At school, I've had it when I've played football. I know how it feels, and it's not nice. But the one thing I've learned is that once you inflict on it, and it does hurt you in the first instance, you report it, you tell people about it, you don't notice not much is done about it. And unless you see proper action, do you really trust the people above to make a difference?
That's the thing. It's tough, right? Because, and sorry, just to clarify, what happened on the terrace didn't actually happen on the terrace. He just got confronted on the terrace, which was nice. That would never happen on the terrace, and that's part of the reason he got called out, because he would never. The guy who did it would have never done that on that channel. He did it on a smaller channel, where it was something like he had access. He completely changed his tone, showed his true colors. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, they dealt with it very well. Cam on Football Terrace used to say that it was not on Football Terrace.
But
it was.
But you're right. Like, the problem isn't, like, I don't know. Like, I've dealt with it my whole life, and it's just like you hit a point where you're like, what are other people gonna do about it versus you always having to deal with it. It is. You need more people like, Robbie, Alexi, anybody who's not a person of color to actually stand up for people who are from different races and different colors, whether it's Indian, Black, Asian, whatever it might be, because when that happens, that's stronger than us doing it at this point, because as much as we can say, it's like, yeah, you know how we feel. So it's like, it is that whole united front thing. And again, I don't know. I always go back to the idea of not just people championing outside. Like, I reached out to Terry, Jem, and all those guys who were champions for it, and I thanked them, because I was like, yo, that's what the society needs, is people. It's like, if a white guy's being a bigot and another white guy looks at him and is like, yo, you're being a fucking bigot, like, shut up. Like, it hits harder. And it's just like, at that point, like, what do you, like, the response is much more difficult for the person who is the racist, because it's like, you're now being called out by somebody who you're saying you're superior, and they're supposed to agree with you, but they don't, which is what I find is that's where most of the power comes from. Obviously, as Black people, like, we have to stick up for ourselves, and like, you're African, I'm Caribbean, it doesn't really matter. Like, people don't see the difference. Yeah, it's a weird one. And what's happening to the footballers is just as bad. It is what's shocking to me. And I'm going to use Mike. It's not as, yes, in North America, it's terrible, but in sport, it's not as prevalent, where the fans racially abuse the players. You'll see it sometimes, but it gets dealt with extremely quickly. And that's kind of the difference. And that's what, and I mean, like, I've been to a lot of NFL games. It doesn't really happen often in an NFL game. Like, you don't have that access to the players, so it's not as serious, but I'm sure there's plenty of racists at those games. In an NBA game, it's it can't happen. There's been multiple examples of, like, Russell Westbrook a year or two ago, one of the best examples of an athlete standing up for himself. He was just pregame, this guy's dribbling around doing his thing. A season ticket holder decided to, start calling him boy and going at him. And Westbrook just stopped and looked at him. He's like, who are you calling boy, man? And he's like, you, blah, blah, blah. And he thought he was untouchable because he's a season ticket holder. He thought everything was good. and I have a point to where I'm going with this. He thought everything was fine. Nothing's going to happen to him. Russ goes and gets security. Next day, dude, season tickets revoked. He posts this whole thing crying about how like, oh, blah, blah. And like the NBA just didn't care. And my point is I'd love to see the FA do more about when they find out about fans who are racist in the actual stadiums, because it happens all the time. And you can like literally point them out and be like, oh, it was that guy. And most of the time they stay for the whole game, or they don't get kicked out, or they don't like get reprimanded. Only recently have we started seeing some people be reprimanded after the fact. But like it has to be like if you're being racist in the stands during a game, like you should be removed and that's it. Yeah. Like there should be there's guys who have been banned and they're like, oh, you're banned for like a year or whatever. What's a year? Like, no, that's it. You're gone. No, like you racially abused a player. You did something. Like you look at what goes on in Italy, Bulgaria, all those other smaller countries, like the bananas being thrown on the pitch, like shit like that. That should be like an instant. You're never coming back. The one thing that made me the most sickening was when Moise Kean's own players were telling him to stop, like standing up for himself. And they're like, this is just what happens here. Like, no, like what?
There's an irony to me wearing the jersey that he used to play in, and it's the fact that since then they have stepped up their efforts to curb racism in Italian football. And I don't think it's completely eradicated there, but I wanted to talk about your point, Cam, regarding the FA, what they do in this country. And I know, Robbie, you're in Scotland. It's a bit different regarding that. Being Scottish, they have a different outlook into how they kick racism out of the game there. But for us here in England, it's a very different situation. And I am fortunate to be employed by them on match days at Wembley. And trust me, I've been there on massive occasions, cup finals, semi-finals, concerts. There have been the non-league games, for example, and I'm a big advocate for non-league football. And I cannot tell you the amount of times that I've seen people who have said the most ludicrous things openly out in the public, and then never get reprimanded for it. This is long before even the pandemic started. I've been working there for 4 years, and I've been speaking to people in the game, like literally in the game. And I've been saying, have you done enough? Do you think there's enough being done to curb it out from a place which should be more of a community feel and have a place of escapism for many, a place they can enjoy themselves no matter what the result is. And they shouldn't be going there either to not come back or to be abused or to have their discrimination, their color, their race being judged in any way, shape, or form, be it on the pitch or off it. It hurts me greatly. Sometimes I think even, like in the past, not so much today, thankfully, but in the past, people who used to be, who used to coach, those who've worked so hard, that have played, that did so much in the minority, they've done so much to try and get into the actual profession of either being a coach or a staff member or anything like that. They get to these games. Maybe they'll make 1 or 2 mistakes without ill harm, but that's enough for them to lose their job. And then the next person they hire isn't of color, and they keep them on even if they make 3 or 4 mistakes of the same kind over and over again. It is very frustrating. I went to Bulgaria last year when I think I did one of my shows was from Sofia, and I did. And it was for a Europa League game. It was a match which was behind closed doors. But I work with locals who help prepare the game and also do the translating job for me. And when I was there, I obviously remembered that England had played there in 2019 and had been the epicenter for one of the heinous evenings where we've seen racism at its peak, when there were people we can't call fans who were actively racially abusing the players on the pitch. Watching that game, actively looking at the game, was horrifying. Now, I spoke to these people and I asked them, like, as Bulgarians, are you proud, or are you in any way supporting the way these people behaved last year when we played against you in this stadium? This is the exact stadium as well that the incident happened, and their response was, we feel very apologetic because they're not Bulgarians. They in no way support what we believe in. Well, the country is very, it's very much a recovering country. It still has the effects of war years ago. For you as a black person to be in our country is a rarity, but we also welcome you because you're not just here to do a job, but you're here to try and take in as much of it as possible. and the people were incredibly welcoming. But I know for sure there is a minority, or maybe even more than that, out there who don't welcome me in their country, who don't want my presence there because they see me as the opposite of what they are, and it makes me sick. It's what I learned. Probably the most harrowing experience was going to a country which was so, was just fully communist and didn't have any like generalized modern views on the way the world is in terms of the human race. They were very much the opposite to what people say. Some of them. I don't know about everyone.
Yeah, it's a weird thing though, right? Because you see, that's the thing. You see those people being upset about what others have done or are doing, but then like, what's happening? Like, are they saying it? Like, that's the thing. It's like, cool. I hear you being like, oh, those people are, but like, where were the people who are apparently all like you stopping those people from doing what they were doing, right? It is, because I do remember that game, and I think I remember like the English team was basically ready to just leave, like they're just gonna walk off.
Yeah, twice they plan to come off the pitch.
Like they plan to come off the pitch, and it's just you hit a point where, like what they did in the NBA, where they just didn't play, they just didn't come out.
Yeah.
But you hit a point where it's like I get it, not everybody's like that, and you can't paint everybody with the same brush, but that's where I would like my point earlier. It's like, then you need to say something and speak up and be a voice. And I understand that you might be afraid because those people are probably dangerous or whatnot. But it's like, imagine if you're afraid, how do the Black people feel? Like if you're afraid to confront them, then how much more afraid are Black people in those situations, who absolutely can't do anything about it, right? It's like, that is that weird in between, because and there's also that so there's that weird notion too where people say like, well, they're just doing it because they know it'll piss people off or get a rise. And one of my good buddies on the terrace, Danny Devil in the Details, he made a very good point the other day about the Zlatan thing, where it's like, I'm a big Zlatan fan, and he was like, listen, he's like, Zlatan doesn't have to be a racist to have said some racist shit. And like he made a very good point, and it was like a strong point. He's like, I'm sick of people, and like it was one that like at first I was disagreeing with him, but he was like, no, he's like, I'm sick of people giving people a pass for saying discriminatory shit because they're like, well, that person's not racist. It's like, no, it's still racist. It's still, he knows what you're doing. You're still looking to piss somebody off, and like it's still not really acceptable. And the only time I think that I've ever truly said like, listen, I'll give a pass is on things where it's culturally different, and it's only the reason, and this is, and I'll use the Cavani situation, the only reason I gave him a pass is because I lived in Buenos Aires. I lived in Argentina. I have a lot of Latino friends, like tons. Like one of my best friends in university from Nicaragua, and his mom calls me Negrito. And his mom, who feed me, who literally would pack food up for me, send it to me directly. Like she's not, it's such a cultural loving thing. Like their whole family, I was in his wedding, I stood with him in his wedding, and the family's like, oh, Negrito, like they pick me up, they love me. It's like I'm part of their family. So that's the only time I'm like, listen, in their culture, it's completely like they can't fathom what we're saying. Like they can't fathom that is used racist. Like to them, they're like, but we don't even mean it that way. Like it's so like hard for them to like change that habit, because they call people fat, skinny, blonde, white, like whatever you look like is what they say. So it's just a way of describing people. But that's neither here nor there. It's a very different thing. Whereas like Zlatan, clearly what he said was like going at the voodoo shit. That's, I was educated like I was educated that's been used against Africans, like in the UK. I'm North American. Like we never, like you'll never hear that being used. Like it's never. Common. Like you know, like so I was like, I thought he was just saying it because the mom, there was that report. I was like, oh, he's just like, it's a mom kind of joke. But then my buddy's like, nah, dude. He's like, that shit's used against like people in Africa, like Africans in the UK is very racist shit. And I'm like, and so it's interesting that even Black people like myself can still be educated about discriminatory like words and attacks. And it doesn't mean, again, that Zlatan's a racist, but it means he's using it to make his Lukaku feel smaller, which isn't okay. He's using it to empower himself and to bring another guy down because he knows it's going to piss him off. He knows it's going to, and that's a problem. Like if that's where you have to go to really hurt somebody, I think that's a big issue, and like Zlatan should have been reprimanded seriously for that. If Cavani's banned for, and I didn't disagree with Cavani's ban because Cavani's ban was to teach him that lesson.
Yeah.
Your culture, we get it, but like here we're not. It's just not stood for. Cool, I get that. If he was banned for that, then Zlatan should have been banned for multiple games.
Yeah.
Because that was deliberate. That wasn't a friendly Instagram post to a friend where if Cavani was trying to be racist, you really think he's gonna put it out there to the whole world like, hey guys, I'm a full-blown racist. It's like he didn't know. Feigning ignorance isn't okay. So you can't excuse it, so you punish it. With Zlatan, what he did was, and this is why I don't believe Serie A is moving in any direction, because I don't believe Zlatan was reprimanded for it.
No.
He didn't get in any trouble. Like he got the ban for the red card that he got later, but he didn't get banned for his comments.
No.
Like they didn't even bring it up. So
this has been a constant thing though, whereas like here, it usually the FA pick up on it, they give them a ban, whatever. But in Italy, it's like, as you said, Moise Kean basically get told to shut up and get on with it. Whereas over here, you're looking to try and educate Cavani, and also another one that I can just think of off the top of my head is Mario Balotelli whenever he played for Brescia as well, and he literally got racially abused the full game, and Italian fans, Italian police, I don't know exactly what it is.
It's
Their
crazy
culture,
though.
it's
He's
just
Italian.
It's
That's
behind.
the craziest part for me. He's Italian.
They don't care. They really. That's what it looks like. It's if they don't care. Kevin Prince Boateng said it. Everyone's. The list goes on in Italy, and I mean, you look at it and you think the UK as a whole probably isn't as bad as a country like Italy, but we're still not doing enough. And that is like
Robbie though. For me, it brings back like horrible thoughts of a bygone era when we used to have the fences up long before Hillsborough. We used to have the fences up, and the people were freely happy to do whatever they liked behind the fence because they can't touch the players most of the time, but they would still do these horrible things in a time when there was no clear method of education to the fans that we were doing what we could to stop black players feeling uncomfortable on the pitch. In Italy, I feel that they didn't do enough, and they're not improving, but they are doing their best to work hard on it. But yeah, even that, as you say, what that campaign, for example, with the
monkeys,
that
was nonsense.
That was the worst possible way to show that you support.
That got media coverage here in Canada. That's how bad it was. Like it was like people like big sports moguls and like people were like, "Is this real?" Like people literally couldn't believe it was a real thing. Everybody was like, "There's no way this is real. There's no chance." And then it turned out to be, and it was just like, wow.
Really?
I'm just being like obviously much quieter like during this because I'm like, yes, I do obviously back like you guys and my friends. I've got friends who from all over, but I'm just like, I've not been obviously discriminated against in Scotland myself. But then, I mean, the reason why I did want to do this is because I obviously talked to Bobby quite a lot, who was helping out in us, and now he's on Football Terrace and doing his work over there, and you just see how much it
him, by the way, from all of us as well. We're glad that he managed to get that big move, aren't we?
Oh yeah, you see that it really does affect the type of people like you guys who are just normal guys who don't deserve it, and I just don't get it, because on here we obviously just stand for everyone to come on, and it's crazy the fact that managed to actually happen on air. And it happens in football grounds, it happens everywhere. It seems to be an ongoing thing where we think, oh, we're out of it, and then something else happens and it gets worse, and then that's it. It's just a kind of cycle, and it keeps happening every single time.
Yeah, Alex, you've been quiet. Sorry, we've kept you quiet for a while.
No, the reason I've been quiet is because I think you've all spoke so eloquently about it. But my opinion on it is, I honestly think there needs to be more consequence for the people committing these actions. I mean, you've all mentioned Ian Wright today, and I was really moved by his statement because, as you know, he was racially abused by a teenager on Instagram a few months ago, and it was found today in court that the teenager that committed that awful abuse to him wouldn't be getting any punishment at all. So that teenager
Really?
who was sat there on
absolutely.
Instagram
Shocking.
and racially abused Ian Wright,
He got nothing.
Nothing.
he got nothing at all. Nothing at all.
No.
And
So
it's
now he's just got clout. He's been exposed to other racists who are gonna like go look at him and pull him in and be like, join
Yeah.
our racist
And
group.
I find that so disturbing though, that someone can commit an act that hateful and horrible and there's no consequence. And it's a point about social media companies as a whole. They have to do more, because at the moment, social media is a vehicle for racists to be racist, because they wouldn't go out in normal life, many of them, and say these things
No,
because they're
they
cowards.
wouldn't.
But they can sit behind social media on a profile picture of an egg or a footballer. They never put their face on it, and they just say the most awful, hateful things to people and have no consequences. But in the real world, they would never go and do that because they're completely cowardly. And the companies have to do more to stop them from being able to hurt people. Because at the moment, you know, things like Twitter and Instagram, it's a platform for racists to be racist. And that Ian Wright case really I just feel really angry about it, because that really highlights that nothing is being done by the companies to stop this. And we saw with Twanzebe last week and Marshall, terrible abuse. But the precedent this case sets for people is that they will think it's fine to do this when it's not. And until there's consequences and until there's punishment, it will carry on. And it's sickening.
And it was see with Ian Wright's case, this was all over the fact that this young man, I don't even know if you call him that, got Ian Wright out of a pack on FIFA. This is why he got racially abused.
Really? That's wild. Like, I didn't really look into it much because, I mean, there's always a different reason and a different excuse. But it's just, I mean, nation's got to do more too. Like, and I go back to, and I'll, like, something that happened today, actually, I think it's important to bring up. Canada actually declared, I don't know if you've heard of the group called Proud Boys.
Yeah.
Canada declared them as a terrorist group, which has serious implications, essentially, because if you get caught being part of a terrorist group in Canada, like, you're going to jail for a long time. Like, there's no way in or out. There's not, like, you will be prosecuted under the full, like, tenets of the law. And since these guys get tattoos and they're visible on social media or whatnot, like, they won't be able to come into Canada. Like, they're going to be on lists. They've gone through and they've found who these people are, and they've started to, and they labeled them as terrorists. That's what needs to happen more. Because at the end of the day, you see alt-right hooligan groups that claim like they're just about football, when the truth is we know they're not. For some of them, you see different groups that hide under the guise of things like, you know, again, football's a big one. Like, hooliganism is there. It can be it can obviously not be racist, but there's a lot of that stems from it too. A lot of those big radical groups. And if you have countries and nations looking at them and being like, listen, we're going to actually label you as terrorists, because that's what you are. Like, you're not a boys club. You're not a social club. You're straight up terrorists. You're just the people you're terrorizing are black people or other races. Like, I love how that phrase has been so destroyed by everybody, like, especially North America, where they've just painted one brush of people as terrorists. And it's like, no, the word terrorist came from people who caused terror to a group of innocent people. That's what it is. That's like the definition of it in layman's terms. So if you are part of like a group that is doing that, that's what you should be labeled as, and that's how you should be prosecuted when you commit acts of terror, acts of racism, or acts of discrimination. It's just, that's the only way to fix it. And a star like Zlatan being punished would have been a good step. Like, that kid being punished, that's making a point, being like, if you decide to go out of your way and racially attack a footballer and he turns you in and we catch you, you're going to go to jail for 3 months or 6 months or whatever. I don't care if you're a kid. We're going to put you in juvenile hall. We're going to give you community service, like, whatever it might be. you start putting the consequences in, where as much as those consequences may not change those people's beliefs, at very least it's something, and it might stop the actions.
Trouble
because,
is,
like,
sorry, I have to bring it up. Trouble is, in this country, it's still very much backwards, and
Yeah.
there's too many people that live in the past, understanding that their parents may have brought them up thinking that they were the superior kind, the superior human to us, whereas instead, the existential beliefs of their parents suddenly become manifested in their hearts, in their minds, and they act without knowing of the consequences. As you guys brought up Ian Wright's case, I thought this would be, for me, this would be a shoo-in for the kid to be reprimanded and put into a more serious situations, that he learns that what he says or does in the public domain can be easily exposed. I mean, nowadays, the power of social media allows us to, let's say, trace someone who may be missing, or even, let's say, in regards to the late Captain Tom Moore, raise awareness for a cause. All of these sorts of things are important in the hunt to make it such a more communal and I must say happier place. I would say a more welcoming environment, rather than be there and just be told that you look like a monkey, or you look like you're from somewhere that isn't particularly the same as here. You look like someone who is treated differently to everybody else. We should do the same. No, that's nothing, and nothing like that should be ever accepted in our community. I would rather that this country fixes that, but they don't do enough. Our government right now are engrossed in a pandemic, yeah, but you still have time on your hands to deal with the actual matter at hand. Last year, I participated, and I'll openly admit it, I participated in the Black Lives Matter protests. I openly admit it, because I feel like that's it. I've taken enough of this for a long time. I will happily take the knee and raise my fist into the sky. I will happily support anything that Black people do. I will support them throughout thick and thin, no matter what, because there's no reason for us to be set back anymore by the people above us who think we are still minor. We are still a minority in a big blue world. Reality is, we are present, and we are going to make our voices heard no matter what. We will get the opportunities we seek. We will look for equality. I mean, the first step for that really is for you to sort out this problem on the social media front, to not allow us to be openly racist, to be openly racially abused, like the players did, like Ian Wright did, like those many before us, in fact, who've been in this situation have experienced. We should start to take things much more seriously, rather than let it just be, as the judge may have made it on the Ian Wright matter today, just to completely ignore it and say he's a kid, he's not learning his lesson. His parents are supposed to be the educators. They're the ones who are supposed to teach him what's right and what's wrong, and they should not be being told your son is not a racist. They should be telling him, the judges should be telling them and him, you have done something really bad that's hurt not only the feelings of the person, but also has changed the way we think of him. We do not, that could have possibly made other people think he's what you called him. And in my honest opinion, it's the sort of thing that I would really get angry about. And I'm angry now, but it doesn't. What can I do? Me and millions, we try, but they still don't listen. All they need to do is listen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry. I was just going to say as well, kind of linked to what Cam was saying as well about the Proud Boys. The really disturbing thing is it was just a month ago that the President of the United States of America had endorsed that group. And that was the leader of the free world. Mm-hmm. And what all of you have said today about, well, Ahmed a second ago as well, about changing, it has to change from the top. Okay. And it's just so disturbing to me that the leader of America, the most powerful man in the world, was endorsing a group that has now had to be classified as a terrorist group because it's disgusting, it's immoral, and it's racist. And I think we need to see change at the top. And obviously Donald Trump is gone, but we need to see more change worldwide in that sense. We need leaders who have diverse cabinets, We need the first black prime minister in the UK, and we just need to make sure that ignorant bigots don't get elected to high office, because when they do get elected to high office, it just incites and encourages bigotry. Because look at the Trump supporters, you know, a lot of them white supremacists, they're emboldened by his rhetoric, they're emboldened by the fact he's a racist, and it has to change at the top. It simply has to. And obviously it has with Trump, but I just feel really sad that, you know, there's a lot of governments around the world that racism is rife within the government itself, and they should be the ones setting an example to everyone else. And for ignorant people to be, and racist people to be completely, you know, eliminated of their disgusting views, for their views to change, there needs to be an example for them to follow. And if they're ignorant anyway, and they're racist anyway, and the person leading their country is also a racist, that's not going to change them at all. And I just find it really, really disturbing that the world got to that place. And it, don't get me wrong, it still is in that place. And that's why I thought like the Black Lives Matter movements was great, because it was just a fight back against the institutional racism, and obviously the racism that's gone on for hundreds of years.
Yeah, so I mean, everything that we've said is absolutely terrible. The things that we've managed to sit here for 44 minutes and talk about all these issues, and the one issue that we've not also spoke about is religion, which I could probably talk about a wee bit more. And in Scotland, Cam, I don't know if you know the teams, but Glasgow Rangers and Glasgow Celtic, probably two of the
Protestant, Catholic, like one's Protestant, one's Catholic
the
or whatever.
Johnson situation as well, still rife in my memory. I wasn't even alive, but for those who are watching, very briefly, Mo Johnson was once upon a time a Celtic player, and he decided one day, I don't want to play for Celtic anymore, despite being a Catholic, moving to the Protestant side Rangers in the late 80s to join Graham Souness and his team, which then sparked outcry across Glasgow and Scotland because of the divide between the two clubs. They have such a passionate rivalry, as many will know. Robbie, it's mad.
It's a passionate rivalry, which all usually, not every single case, but usually stems because, let's say, who your dad supports, which is usually down to religious beliefs. For me personally, my dad supported Celtic, still does, and my mum doesn't obviously like football, but she edges towards Rangers. So you can take what you will from that. However, I've decided to go completely against it because I hated the fact that there's two teams in Scotland because of these beliefs. Everyone in my school supports them. So I supported my local team, Airdrie, which is known as the Mini Rangers. But just generally because Airdrie is a more kind of Protestant type town. Not everyone, as I said. And you look at that and you think, surely that's outdated as well. You know, like surely that you shouldn't pick who you support because of religious beliefs. Surely
I didn't know that was still a thing.
Oh yeah.
I knew about the history because I mean it's pretty widely known. Obviously, it's a big rivalry, they're the two biggest teams in Scotland or whatnot. But I didn't know people still actually supported one side or another based on their religion. Because I didn't think it mattered at this point. You're like, it's just at this point, it's just sport. I know back in the day it was more than sport. Like football was, that's the thing. There was used as like a way of gaining power based on like whatever. But I didn't know that was still a thing. I didn't know that was still an issue.
A lot of people do, especially in Scotland. I would say over a lot of countries, to be honest, it happens. It's very rife. To be honest, the fact that you look at that, and I wasn't actually going to talk about that today, and I was sitting there thinking, like, am I actually affected by any of this? And I thought, no, but I mean, I'm living in a country just now which is completely like ran by that. For those two football teams, they really own Scottish football. Let's be real. I mean, they're always in either Europa League, Champions League, and they're good, yes, but I'm just like, I don't know why. Whenever I was younger, I went against it all, and I was like, I'm going to support my local team, and because I can't be bothered with. But I went to a non-denominational school, which mainly the people supported Rangers, and I was just like, nah, I'll just go and
religion and sport in North America is not really. I mean, everybody. You
should support where you're like.
Although
where you're from,
like in North America, they just like they thank God a lot, but there's not like there's no teams that are one religion or not. Like you don't really see that.
Actually, it should be. That is literally the way it should be.
I remember a little while ago in the NFL, there was a Kansas player who, on one occasion, who's a Muslim, participated in a game, scores a touchdown, and then does the what we like to call the sujood, the prayer, the bowing down to the ground and thanking for us. We call God Allah, and thank you Allah for allowing him to score the touchdown. This brought an outcry from numerous outlets in the media in the US. It wasn't too long ago, because it was about in the early 10s, I think it happened. So it wasn't far too long. This is how I remember it. And the NFL didn't really do a good job of backing him. And yes, Robbie brings up religion quite avidly, because there is a minority in the game of people like me who I would say, African, Black, Muslim, and etc., who are involved in the game like this. And there's also very few that actually play it. I think Jan Danda is an Asian who plays in Swansea right now, who's of Asian heritage, but he's a wonderful talent and he could be a big star one day, who's openly fought for his right to be in the limelight like this and play good and do it on the pitch rather than be judged for his colour. I'm glad though. The one glad thing with there being no fans in the ground nowadays is that you don't have that actual religious element of abuse being thrown at you because
how bad is that? Ahmed, that you actually need to say that, like.
It's awful, but that's not for me. Unfortunately, that's the only grace I have from there being no fans in the ground.
Yeah,
is that these players can actually get along and get on with their work without needing the distraction of people in the stands telling them what they think of them and what they can think of their heritage and their colour. I hate saying that because I know football without the fans isn't isn't as good a place as it is. But the benefit we have, and the only positive I see from the doors being closed to them during this pandemic, is that you're now able to judge them just on their footballing ability and nothing more. Will that change when fans come back in? I don't know. Maybe it won't, because there's a lot of people that will use it again as the same outlet to get rid of their actual thoughts rather than the original purpose of being there is to support their team. So honestly, I feel like, religion, as you mentioned, Robbie, is something that is really not ignored, but is sometimes, let's say, neglected sometimes when it comes to discrimination. And people who suffer from religious discrimination do have the same feelings, I'd say, as anyone of color. And they do sometimes, there are some, however, that take advantage of that and use it as a way of empowering themselves over others. And again, it's another anecdote from my times as a young boy was I went to an Islamic school, and I could never tell you a day where I wasn't openly hearing racial shit, like from people from North Africa who are commonly of a more paler color than us. They are of the same religion, but they have a different color. They still openly racially abuse us, particularly on numerous occasions when I've been just playing football with them. They would call me things that I cannot broadcast on this channel. It was so far I left the school. I was 12. And it was still affecting me then. So how can a 12-year-old boy tell you and write what he said, what he told him, and not be reprimanded for that? It baffles me. But the same thing happens in my religion. Even those who are within the confines of the same umbrella can still do naughty things or say naughty stuff like that to another person. For me, I find it to be just incredible that you are supposed to be able to harmonize and stick together, but you still find yourselves in horrible situations because someone of a different color still acts like they're white, but they're actually not in any way, shape, or form. It really confuses me, and I think we've neglected. It's neglected, but like many events, it has come to the fore a lot in the last decade, and it will probably still be like that unless something changes and changes quickly, because I have a lot of friends who I share the game with, and I share also I also share a lot of opinions on these sorts of events, and these things that happen, or people I work with who I don't mean to drown on too much. People I work with who are from these areas of depravity and don't have a lot at hand, they get told to go back to where they came from, and I find it to be incredibly disgusting. A common person cannot say that to someone. They're there to earn a living, even if it be so small. They want to be able to be successful later. They want to earn the right to live in this country. Maybe they have dreams that will be hard to fulfill where they are, where they originally were. They came here for a reason. If you don't have open arms, when you're walking with open arms, what are you really? You're not really a human being. You are someone else. Could be alien for all I know, but I'm lost for words, boys. I am a lot lost for words. I think we have a problem in our world right now. We have a big problem, and to fix it will take a lot. But to fix it to get rid of it completely, it will need a miracle, in my opinion. But
it's weird because it's taught, right? So it almost needs to be, and I've said this about like certain wars, like the whole Confederate South versus America, like almost needs to be not taught. I know it's a pretty radical thing to say, and I know some of it does need to be taught, but it's almost the only way to get generations to not be racist or people is to not teach them to be racist, right? You're always going to have parents and people who teach them that, but if you can go look in the history books and look up a war vet that you then see as a hero who owned slaves and shit, and you want to be like him, like what's stopping you from then latching onto that, right? Like erasing certain parts of history. I know it is a really radical thing to say, but it's like one of the only things I could think of as a solution, because removing the Proud Boys, for instance, their whole mindset is like, oh, we're the pure race or whatever. Where the fuck did that come from? Well, that came from like Germany, Aryan race. That's not even an American concept. Like, it's not even a North American concept. That didn't even that's not even based on like the Confederacy and shit like that. The Proud Boys are basing themselves around neo-Nazis. So it's like, where did you get that ideology from? You got it from Hitler. You got it from somewhere else, and now you've brought it over. It's been taught, and then people are latching onto that and being like, oh yeah, that I believe in that guy's ideologies. Now, is that to say there isn't going to be somebody else who has those beliefs and starts that same those ideals up later on in life? No, we don't know that. But what we do know is there's way more people who denounce it now, because it didn't prevail. I mean, there's a whole war over it, over like what went down with anti-Semitism and the whole white supremacy. That wasn't well received by the world, obviously, as we know, for the past. And it's like, it is a very crazy thing to say, but it's like, you almost have to find pieces of history and be like, this needs to be eradicated and erased. But then there's parts you have to teach people, because you have to be like, well, there were people who stood up and were against it, right? So this is where I waffle. I go back and forth, and I'm like, you want to erase it, but you want to talk about the fact that the North was so against slaves that there was a war, and they fought for Black people, and they fought to end slavery, and they fought to end injustice against humanity, right? You want to you want that to be, you want to talk about the fact that it wasn't accepted what happened in Germany. Like, that wasn't something that was like common, but people were like, oh, it just didn't go away. No, there was people fought and died to end it. So how do you do that without putting limelight on what those those wrong ideals were? That's the tough part. So you're in this weird space where it's like, there's always going to be taught, and there's always going to be people who read the books and learn about those messed up things and then be like, yeah, they were right. So like, it's just a very hard thing to stop. Like, it's a very difficult thing to kind of, I just don't know how you stop it other than common decency. You would think like generations would eventually it would be weaned out, but we're learning with like the Ian Wright case. Like, these are kids. They're not just learning it on their own. They're not just waking up and they're going to school and somebody's agreeing with it. Their parents are saying things in their homes. There was that one guy on Twitter the other day who was like, Black people and Bratton. He was talking about I don't know her name. She's the Indian lady from the UK, who she's like pretty powerful. Say again?
Priti Patel?
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I just like,
Oh, yeah.
no disrespect her. I just don't know your politics very well.
No, I bet you don't know her, to be honest.
Yeah. So anyway, so it's like he was like, "Oh, I'm not listening to some brown." He's like, "The place for blacks or under white people and shit." And he posted this on Twitter, completely just like, "Yeah, I'm gonna say this out loud. Don't care." A video with his like wife in the background being like, "Ooh, stop that!" Like smiling, and you're just like,
The funny thing is, Cam, you bring that guy up, and obviously he paid a pretty hefty penalty for it. He was once brings it back to football. Ironically, he was a coach of a young football team, and once they figured out that was what he does on the side when nothing's going on, suddenly the whole of most of the UK suddenly thought, well, why does this guy deserve to work with people below it? Like he's trying to teach and understand morals and ethics of football. If he's saying ludicrous stuff like that on the TV, now don't get me wrong, I'm not a big fan of Priti Patel myself. She does say some outlandish things. She does say some stupid stuff, and is a conservative parliamentary member in this country who run the government right now, which are not doing a good job.
I don't know if that was my internet or yours. I think it might have been mine where you cut out for some of that. I think it was mine.
Yeah, I think it was you, Cam, to be honest.
Right,
yeah, sorry, because I'm in a new place, so my internet's a little...
It's all right. It's all right. We're hoping it's going well. But to dumb it down a bit, to make it shorter, she runs the country, and she, with the government right now, which are not doing a good job, and is a person of colour. And however, she says outlandish things as if she is a white woman, which is why there's a lot of appeal to, like, she's trying to appeal to those of her her
like I've seen McCullough go off about her multiple times.
Yeah, he really doesn't like her, and I've spoken to him numerous times. He's not a big fan at all. Personally, in this country, she's seen as like the vampire in terms of her opinions, not in a nasty way.
No, I know what you mean.
But she's not very nice, and it's been well documented in the last 12 months. She's been part of the reason why a lot of the things in this country have gone so wrong. Not in terms of the pandemic, but in terms of the borders and the way that the public have been treated during the pandemic. A lot of it has been heard talking about it, but not making it abundantly clear that she's supporting what the people want. And it's sad, really. I think really she's a good example of how to be successful at a high standard in the UK. But I was hoping she'd use that platform as a way of reducing the racism or the discrimination we are facing in this country. Touching on it, because we've not got very long left, the FA wants to go back into football because we're running out of time, sadly. What should the FA do more of now? We covered the Negrito matter with Edinson Cavani and how the FA obviously used as a way of educating him that you shouldn't say stuff like this. I accept that this is normal in South America and they use this term freely there. I understand it, but here's a thing that they do need to understand: it is sensitive to us. Mm-hmm. But in terms of football, what the FA should do, in my opinion, I want you to get your thoughts on this too, because obviously it's not great that Axel, Marcia, Anthony, and Marcus have had to face this. Reece James as well. We've neglected to mention him tonight. The Chelsea mid right back, he was also subjected to similar abuse on Instagram as well. What should they do to stop this from being a frequent matter for any further in our game? I know it's not ideal to just talk about football. I know it needs to be sorted out globally. But in our community, in our game, how do we stem it out for now? Like, what do you guys think?
I don't know. The tough thing is the FA can only do so much if they don't have identities, right? I think it needs to, the stuff that happens in the stadiums, the FA has to absolutely clamp down on. Anybody who you do get identities of who make these comments, they have to be put on a list. They have to no longer be allowed to attend games. They have to feel some sort. That's the only thing you can really do as the FA, because it's not their, like, they can't criminally charge anybody, but they need to cut that stuff out in the sense where it really comes down to what the social media companies do, right? And how, like, allowing that information, like, yes, it's all about privacy or whatever, but privacy goes out the door when you're committing a crime. That's the thing. Like, if I'm on a stream and I'm saying I'm going to commit a crime, and then I commit said crime, they're going to come for me because I made it clear and you can find my information. So that's what I'd like to see. I don't know if the FA can do much more other than stop it from happening in the stadiums and harsher punishments in that sense. Yeah, that's my opinion. I don't know about you two.
Okay.
So, I mean, from players, I think.
From players, sorry. Yeah, I didn't get to the players to Robbie.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. I'm pretty sure our views will be pretty much the same. And it's about education. The players, definitely coming from abroad, need to be educated whenever they come into the British game, because, I mean, that Cavani, we always use that example. It probably wasn't the right thing to say, obviously, in Britain, but if he did get educated into the matter, then he probably wouldn't have said it, let's be honest. And I mean, you look at it and you think, do the British players actually need to get educated as well? Like, do they need classes? And I'd probably say yes, because I mean, the British players, they're obviously still doing it as well on odd occasions. I mean, I can't really remember the last time it's happened, but it does happen. And then obviously we talk about fans, and we go back to the fact about social media. And I mean, these companies, I don't believe, are doing enough. I know obviously identity issues, and they actually can't find every last bit of information about the person. But if they do find the people, then they need to face very, very hard consequences. And I mean, that guy, Ian Wright, I didn't really talk about it as much, but the young guy about Ian Wright who racially abused him, do they people then racist? Do they think, oh wow, this 12-year-old boy from England has went and racially abused probably one of England's best footballers of all time? Can I do that because he's not got anything, any punishment? I don't know. I mean, I'm unsure exactly how do we go about it, but there just need to be more stricter rules in place from social media sites to avoid, for example, monkey emojis and stuff like underneath Axel Tuanzebe's his post, like over a game of football. At the end of the day, it's all over a game of football. Yes, it's people's passion, but like, I've never done it to anyone. It just doesn't go through my mind to do that.
Lexi?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think two things definitely that are really important: education and consequence. And I fully agree with what all of you have said about educating people on why stuff like this is wrong. And I think that's why, while I think Cavani's ban was obviously controversial, I don't think he was banned for being racist. I think he was banned because they were showing, even if you say something that is racist but you're ignorant to it, it is still being racist. And ignorance is a massive problem. And ignorance, in some people, let's be honest, it won't ever go away. People are just ignorant. That's what they are. But we can educate people to stop them from thinking like that and from thinking it's right to be like that. And, you know, the consequences ultimately lie, as we've all said, with the social media companies for the abuse that players are receiving. And until they do something, I don't know how we can step forward. And it shouldn't be normal that after a few football games, it's games of football. This is what always blows my mind. It's a sport. It's just 22 players kicking a ball about. Yet in the last few weeks, we've just constantly seen players being just awfully abused because their team has lost a game of football. And the fact that that is a normal thing that's happening, that this is a normal thing that can go on constantly, it just shows that so much more needs to be done in so many different areas. And until there is change in consequence and education, there won't be change, and these people will still be emboldened and able to say they're just disgusting, vile things that they do say.
Yeah. Well, for me, I wish I could tell you my overriding plan, but we have little time, so I'll keep it concise and simple. The simple act is to stem it out of football first, because that's where it's commonly happening in society, in the normal world. We can only do what we can in that particular situation at the time. But in football, which is what we here at Traffic Talk do, is what we talk about. We talk about Man United. We talk about no one else. We only cover them. We may wear different clothes every day. We may wear different glasses every day. We may have a different haircut. Nothing will change about us, though. We have the same rituals, the same beliefs, and the only purpose that this channel was founded on by Robbie and for us to be hosts on was because we wanted to talk about football and football only, and that is it. We don't want to have to deal with stuff like this again. No matter where it is, whether it's on the pitch, on YouTube, on social media, nowhere. We are a diverse. Well, welcome to all diversities. We welcome to all places of people of color. We welcome everyone. We wish we could get more involved from Natalie tonight, but her internet sadly let her down. But I am sure she would have had the same thoughts as we all did here, that the game should do a lot better to be more welcoming to people of color like myself and Cam and everyone else who do play a part in trying to keep it a more equal and diverse game. I work for UEFA nowadays. I think they don't do enough to support the diverse communities and those that really need like, let's say, support to get them to be a little bit more welcoming, a bit more open playing or participating in football. I think the same applies to the FA. They should do a lot better in this country to not only educate players, but people in the stadiums who do these things. The people one day I know it will happen because we are in a pandemic, but under no way football will be without fans forever. While I said earlier, it's the only benefit that players have, that fans aren't there to talk and tell them what they really think about their diversity and their color. My real opinion is they deserve the platform to perform what their talent and their ability allows them to do, to express, to entertain, and to bring success to the clubs they play for. We will always support any cause to stem out racism from football. The FA needs to do the same. The government needs to do as much as possible as well in this country. And I'm sure everywhere in the world, there is the same sort of plights happening to everyone, no matter what they are. I mean, something we haven't touched on today was the Uyghur Muslims in China. And me speaking about it is a very sensitive matter. The reason I've deflected from it tonight is because that is such a big topic that it needs its own show. It's such a big topic.
About all these things.
Yeah, these are problems that we can't always have control in. But one of my wishes is that the world is a better place, and it only happens if one person just happens to be nice to the other person. And sometimes you wonder, why do they go out and chase the dreams that they seek out to, the dreams they chase to achieve, or to earn the right to be the best that they can be? It's because they believe in themselves, no matter who they are, what their heritage is. They believe in themselves. I believe that I want to be a commentator. I can admit that openly. I love doing it. And I am proud to say that it's something I do as much as I can from my desk here at home or from grounds in the UK where I can. I'm proud to say that. I'm proud to be a host on this podcast. I am proud to host a non-league podcast that I am so welcomes me greatly. Cam is a wonderful host. We do as much as we can to accommodate and be welcoming to anyone and everyone that comes on these shows here on Traffic Talk. And I'm sure the same applies for the Terrace too. It's shocking what happened over there. That is it's a wonderful community there where fans all come together, and I'm sure Terry he does a wonderful job to keep them going. It's at the same time though, football needs to get rid of racism under any circumstances possible. We cannot have it in our game. Not now, not ever. And Traffic Talk will do what will obviously Robbie will cover that hopefully in his area, but we'll do our best to stem it out from the game, and we'll stem it out from here especially. We'll start here and hope it blows out as far as possible. So all of you, so you, Cam, Robbie, Alexi, I really appreciate. I think we've all made a huge step tonight in trying to stem it out from our game. Again, apologising to Natalie, her internet let her down, but I hope we can get her thoughts again another day when it is a lot better. But it's been a pleasure bringing this to you all. I hope you appreciate that this is just a one-off, but we will make it our pinned video, I hope, on YouTube, Robbie, if we can,
Yes.
so that we get as much awareness on this matter as possible. It's a long one, I know, but we appreciate you all sticking with us through it. And we'll be back to normal, I promise, from Friday onwards. You have the preview for Everton and the review on Sunday. It's been a busy week of football. We're still pretty much reeling off of last night's result, despite what's happened elsewhere in the Premier League today. But appreciate you all coming on, and please follow us on Twitter, hit the like and retweet this as well, and on YouTube, subscribe if you want more, and hit the notification for when we go live. Thank you very much, boys. I appreciate it. And to everyone watching, take care and be nice to each other out there. Stay safe. Good night.